okay, this looks weird. It's gonna be okay. Listen, I think in 2026 or 2027, as soon as possible, the UFC should limit ground control in their fights. I believe they should. And I am going to show you why. I put two fights over here as prime examples, both of these extremely hyped fights, with tons of animosity towards these events, and a bunch of build up leading to these fights and high expectations. Both of these fights were disappointing to say the least. Hamza versus EDP wasn't exciting until like the last 30 seconds of round 5, and DD and Islam Makhachev versus Jack Della Maddalena wasn't as bad, but again, it wasn't a fight that we wanted to see. We wanted to see these guys go at it, like have a competitive fight, like Islam invoked it. We wanted to see Hamza and DDP go at it, but we couldn't get to see that because ultimately ground control is insane, and I believe that it does give a massive disadvantage to the boxer. And obviously, there's been people saying that, oh, boxers should just learn wrestling. Fighting is not boxing. At the same time, punching is the base of fighting. Punching, boxing is the base of MMA itself. So you could say it's the base of fighting, not MMA. MMA, obviously, have wrestling, jiu-jitsu, all sorts of things. But at the same time, you should still, as a boxer, have an equal chance to beat your opponent like a wrestler will. I'm going to say right here, ground control has heavily disappointed fans in 2025. Having no limit on ground control has heavily disappointed fans in 2025. Like I said, with these two prime examples right here. And the problem is I'm going to point more towards Hamza and DDP, because when they fought, there was like realistically not that much punch. I mean, in the beginning of round 1, Hamza did get DDP in a nasty crucifix, and I believe he could have finished the fight there, but he didn't. He hugged him the whole fight, and that's not what we want to see as MMA fans. It's not about what we want to see as MMA fans, but at the same time, you should account the fact that we need to see all aspects of fighting and not wrestling. This is not wrestling. This is going to ruin the UFC because there's only more Dagestan fighters coming in. I know Hamza's not from Dagestan, but at least in Islam's fight, we saw like ground and pound punches. Like, the thing is, listen, with Khabib Nurmagomedov, when he fought his opponents, he wasn't trying to hug for 5 rounds. He was trying to dominate them. He was trying to ground and pound. He was trying to submit them. He was doing everything in his power he could to get his opponent out of there. And a lot of the times he did. Like with Blake from McGregor, with Gagey, like with Poirier, he got all of them out of there. And nowadays, these fights are going to go to decision, bro. So, but the problem with Hamza, he didn't chase a finish that whole fight. There was a lot of times he could have finished DDP, and he didn't. Limit ground control. There is a lack of dominant grapplers, in my opinion. And by dominant grapplers, I do mean grapplers that will take you down and not just hug you. You can tell Hamza is definitely a dominant grappler. He's a dominant grappler. He's good at grappling, right? The problem is when he grapples you, he does not chase the finish like most of these fighters should. And putting a limit to ground control will do that, because you should not be able to hug a fighter for 5 rounds. There should be, let's look at the fixture here. There should be a 2-minute and 30-second ground control limit in every single round. You should not be able to have more than 2 minutes and 30 seconds of ground control. That's half of the round right there. If you get your opponent down, should you be able to keep him down? Of course. Of course, in a way, and I think you should be able to keep him down. But at the same time, it depends. There's like usually no action, and rarely the referee will be like, all right, get up. There's not enough going on. Joe Rogan would watch this video and hate me for my takes, but I don't think that. I think all aspects of fighting should be considered in UFC events. I don't think there should be any more than half of the round within ground control. We need to combine all the aspects of martial arts. If a wrestler has just as good as a chance of a boxer knocking him out, we should be able to see that go hand in hand. Okay. Now, I do think that considering this ground control rule, there should be like a rule where if the opponent is actively seeking a finish, then you should not call him up. You should be able to see that as well. It should be visible to the fans and to the ref that he is seeking a finish. I think that should it should be very visible to the ref and the fans that let's say Hamza Shemaev is seeking a finish, because he wasn't that whole fight, and I think he should have been standing up. They should have been stood up a lot more times than they did. I'm sorry, I don't know what the fuck happened to my grammar. I think that like I said, I think they should have been stood up more times. Now, I think that it should be 12 minutes and 30 seconds in the whole fight. Hamza Shemaev had, I believe, 21 minutes of ground control in the fight against DDP. It was a super hyped up fight, and you just hate to see it go that way. Like, you hate to see it, like, you hate to see it go in the pattern of, like, well, I'm seeing this pattern personally. We hate to see this pattern of there's a good fight that's being hyped up currently. Watch them wrestle the whole time. We don't want to see that as fans. And it's not about us. It's about who is the best fighter in the world. But nobody wants to sit there and watch people wrestle, and it shouldn't be like that. Boxers should have an equal chance to, as equal as a chance to knock out a grappler as a grappler does at wrestling a boxer or submitting it. You know, and like that makes more sense than just letting them hug the whole fight. It gives wrestlers the advantage, first of all, and the goal would to be combine all aspects of mixed martial arts. Consider all aspects of mixed martial arts. Now, with that being said, I do think grappling is always going to be the dominant base in MMA, but it will ruin the sport one day. Like, I can see it ruining the sport within 10 years because there are only more and more and more Dagestan fighters coming, and their goal is not to just fight, is not to just knock a guy out or like finish them. Their goal is to wrestle them and hug them. Like, that's why Islam Makhachev is so highly praised up there with Khabib, because Islam Makhachev is one of the few that actually finishes his opponent, like knocks them out. One of the few Russian Dagestani fighters that like he will knock you out or he will submit you. Like, he's just that dual threat. Khabib, on the other hand, he would take his opponents down and it wouldn't even be boring. It wasn't boring grappling. It was grappling where you saw another guy get his head smashed in for minutes. And it was entertaining because he seeked the finish. Nobody else did. This fight was a mockery to the sport. And think about Sean Brady versus Leon Edwards. That fight is a prime example of like how much ground control really makes a difference. Because I think one of the rounds he had what, 4 minutes and 56 seconds of ground control, I believe. I don't know. But he literally had 99% of the ground and ground control. That's crazy to me. And I think that the striker should be able to have an equal chance in a fight. You know, in a real fight, in a street fight, in all circumstances, if you get your opponent down like Islam does right here, he's not gonna get up probably until like there's no rounds in a street fight. He's probably not gonna get up. Now, if you want to use that logic to apply to UFC, like, oh, well, if this was a street fight, you know, he wouldn't be able to get up, so why should he be able to give you? I don't think that logic should be applied here because this is professional fighting. They need to have an equal chance to beat each other. Life's not fair. Life's not fair. But boxing is the foundation of combat sports. When you think of combat sports, you're going to think of boxing before anything. Unless you're like me or like any other MMA expert, you're going to think UFC, MMA. But when you think of combat sports, you're not thinking of wrestling. Some people might. You're not thinking of wrestling. You're probably not thinking of jiu-jitsu. You're going to think of boxing because that's the most highly known combat sport, and it kind of started MMA. It kind of like it's just the biggest. It's the biggest combat sport there is. So I think that we should have some consideration for boxers as well. And again, with this rule, it doesn't fully eliminate like boxing. I mean, it doesn't fully eliminate grappling. It gives you 2 minutes and 30 seconds of a round to control your opponent. If you can't stay on the feet, look, listen, this is my logic we'll use right here. If you can't submit him, if you get him down and you have him for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, right? If you can't submit him or finish him in that time, then the boxer should have an equal chance of trying to knock you out in the other 2 minutes and 30 seconds, or more than likely less, like 100%, because for it to go both ways, the wrestler would have to shoot literally 1 second into the round, which is not happening. But what I'm saying is that this makes equality. You know what I mean? This makes a lot of equality. 2 minutes, 30 seconds in every round. Say Islam is fighting. He takes his opponent down. 2 minutes and 30 seconds go by. His opponent, depending on when he shot, has a minute or two to stand and fight. And the grappler will have an equal opportunity to defend that, just like the striker was just defending himself against the grappler on the ground. This gives an equal chance for both fighters to combine and consider all aspects of mixed martial arts. I think it should change like this. And thank you for watching my video.
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.